Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 231 of Empty Betters. I'm your host for this episode, Nick Manella, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw it off to my buddy who's looking pretty spiffy for Halloween. If you're not watching on YouTube, you really should be because this is one you don't want to miss. So, Mac Vogel, what's going on, my dude?
What's up? Yeah, I noticed you said I'm your buddy, and that's kind of on point because I'm currently dressed as a bottle of Bud Light. So
You
that's
are.
pretty cool. And I'm loving your costume. The what is that? The hash bringing the trash,
Yeah,
cleaning of the trash.
the hash slinging Thrashers, baby.
Hell yeah. Creative. I love it.
Had to go for the Halloween episode. Halloween, I feel like a holiday you and I like very much. Harry, maybe not so much. We are without Harry for this show, so bear with us. But
Who
what
needs them?
does what do you have lined up for Halloween? I feel like you guys usually have a big shindig at your place.
Yeah, we're doing the party again, so that'll be fun. Excited for that. That'll be on Friday, which is weird. It's so weird this year. Like people celebrated last weekend, some are celebrating this weekend, but then there's also a bunch of shit going on near me in the city, like on actual Halloween. So I don't know. It's become like a month-long holiday, which I guess I'm not complaining about, but it is a little weird, like having a Halloween party on November 1st. Never done that before, but
Yeah, it is weirder once it carries over. I don't know why, but it almost makes more sense to do it on the 25th than it does on November 1st.
yeah. Um, that kind of leads perfectly into a little rant that I would like to go off on here.
Go off,
And
King.
and that is that I have a lot of coworkers who are a little older and have young children. And I live in a neighborhood that's got a lot of families in it and that kind of thing. And based on what I've gathered from my coworkers and from context clues around my neighborhood, I've come to the understanding that most, if not all, neighborhoods, and it's not just Milwaukee. I've heard other friends say similar things about, states and cities they live in. They like their kids don't trick or treat on October 31st. There's like a neighborhood sanctioned day that they all like announce in some sort of like neighborhood newsletter of like, oh, today's the trick or treat day or whatever. And like these are the houses that are in like the trick or treat jurisdiction this year, like some dumb shit like that. And it's like, brother, when I was a kid, we didn't give a fuck what day the 31st fell on. We were trick or treating on the 31st. Why would you not? That
I don't
ruins the
care if
whole
your lights are
fucking
off. I'm
point.
coming up to your house. This is part of the game, buddy.
Well, and that's the other thing too. With like literally, one of my coworkers was like, "Yeah, luckily I'm not in the trick or treat jurisdiction this year. We had to get candy last year, but we have like it's like every other year, like half of the houses do it and half of them don't, or some shit." And I was like, "That is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life." Like we just knew not to go up if you had your lights out or if you had decorations up, then we knew you were down to give us some candy. But the main beef I have here is like what the fuck are we doing not trick or treating on the 31st? That's so crazy to me. What
I'm
like
I'm glad you brought this up because literally like 4 hours before this, I was talking with my parents and my mom was mentioning in the neighborhood that she grew up in Jersey, Tom's River, right over the bridge from Seaside Heights. They trick or treat in that neighborhood today, the 30th, because they have some massive Halloween parade or something like that, October 31st. And I was like, that is just so bizarre to me. I feel like
whatever.
we had this thing down to a science. Like when I was,
Yeah.
when you get to being like that, those last couple years of trick or treating, like kids like that I did this with, they had a hand drawn map of like what houses to hit, what houses to avoid, who gave the best candy, who ended up giving you raisins, or like,
Yeah.
God forbid, there was like a dentist in your neighborhood and you ended up getting like the flossing kit and a toothbrush or something like that. But, like, I mean, it was like a covert operated SEAL team mission, for lack of a better word.
Right. Yeah. No, that, I mean, it's just crazy to me. Like, I saw kids walking around my neighborhood the other day, like everybody trick or treating, and I was like, that sucks. That's
Yeah,
so lame.
that's weird. Oh well. Well, I mean, hopefully there's a good mix of like people that still do it on Halloween for the kiddos, because I mean that's what it's
Yeah,
all about really anyways. And
I would hope so.
yeah, I've seen like a couple like apartment complexes and places like that do like really cool things and stuff. So Your neighborhood is also like perfect for Halloween. So like it
It
kind
kind
of
of
just
is,
seems like a
yeah.
big wasted opportunity there for some awesome decor. Like some of those houses are pretty sick.
I know some of them, mine included. You don't even have to decorate them to make them spooky.
Exactly. You just wait until cats fling open doors while you're asleep and scares the living shit out of you.
There you go.
Not that that's ever happened to me, but anyways, hockey podcast. Let's go ahead and get into some hockey stuff. But before we do, we just have a word from our friends over at Gametime. And you guys know there's nothing like watching hockey live. The chill of the ice, the sound of the puck, and screaming for your favorite team. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. I got my Caps tickets for this week on Gametime, and now you can too. Gametime's deals make it easier to find the best prices on the best seats, and you can even see a panoramic view from your seats before you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code THPN for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, we got a lot to get into today, so we're going to try and move through this relatively quickly, but we all know how that's going to go. Plus, it's a Halloween episode, so you're in for one. A Tale of Two Cities, Edmonton and Florida. We know these two all too well from what we saw in the Stanley Cup final last year, and they're kind of trending in opposite directions right now. Big news out of Edmonton is obviously going to be surrounding 97. So he's week to week, picked up a lower body injury against the Columbus Blue Jackets on Monday. He was tripped up by Zach Werenski coming into the zone, crashed awkwardly into the boards, didn't come back. He is listed as week to week. This comes to us from Kayla Douglas, but they're saying he's going to be out for about 2 to 3 weeks. Stats wise, because you know we're a stats heavy pod, the Oilers typically do not play well when McDavid's not in the lineup, which I just find shocking, Mac. I don't know about you, but you know,
Yeah.
it's almost like having your captain and the best player on the planet will hurt you in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I guess my question to you is, where's the panic index if you're an Oilers fan right now?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, awkward play, seeing him go down like that. Don't really think there was anything wrong that Werenski did, just kind of a weird play. I don't know. I mean, the problem is the panic meter was already kind of going up before he even got hurt because they haven't been playing too terribly well. And now, as you mentioned, he's out, and we all know, that's not an easy thing to try and boost confidence in the locker room when you're missing a guy of that caliber, missing your captain, that kind of thing. So I don't know, 2 to 3 weeks right now when you've already gotten off to kind of a slow start I think the panic meter should be kind of high, honestly, maybe like a 7 out of 10.
I was going to say 6. I feel like this is obviously it's better to have this happen now than 2 to 3 weeks from now. But
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see what you're saying. I mean, we're kind of getting into the point where we're through the first 2 weeks. Everyone kind of knows what they have and more importantly, what they don't have.
yeah.
And you're kind of looking around going, all right, how are we going to survive November, December to be in a position to contend in January and February? I don't necessarily, these guys have proven that they don't need to start hot to finish well, but I mean, I would be concerned if I was an Oilers fan. I mean, you really got to figure something out here if you're Knobloch for how to just do. I mean, I hate saying that one player is damage control, but losing one player of this caliber, you absolutely have to be looking at damage control, right?
I would think so. I mean, yeah, I don't know what their schedule looks like immediately, but it almost doesn't matter when you're going to play that long without a guy. You're going to run into some good and some bad teams. I think, and I'll save this because I actually have another Oiler that I'm going to talk about a little later when we talk a little bit of fantasy hockey. But there's some guys in that locker room that really need to step up right now, and yeah, I'll name names in a little bit.
And it's, I'll save this until we talk about your player, but again, they need to step up again. It's like the fourth time we're having this
Yeah,
conversation, which is
yeah, that's
making,
right.
which now for everyone who's not an Oilers fan, it's annoying for us too.
Yeah, no, absolutely, well said.
Yeah. Let's move over to Florida. So polar opposite, they get their captain and their star player Alexander Barkov back. He returns to the lineup after missing 8 games with a lower body injury. scores his first goal of the season, adds an assist. They win 5-2 over the Sabres on Monday. How big of a boost is that for the Florida Panthers?
Yeah, I mean that's huge. We know the kind of player Sasha is, and I mean it like you said, it's just the absolute opposite. It's so interesting to me to watch like take the last 5 or so years and the last 5 or so cup winners and how differently they've all kind of come into that next season. A lot of times you expect there to be like a cup hangover of like too much partying, not enough off time during the off season. Not seeing that at all so far from this Panthers team. It's a long season. It's early. That could still kind of kick in a little bit later. But so far so good for the Cats. I mean, and that's huge getting Barkov back as well.
Yeah, and it seems like the players, down that lineup have stepped up as well. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they ended up winning the Stanley Cup last year was their depth. They got depth scoring all throughout that postseason. They've gotten a decent amount of it to start the season this year. And even guys that are on, like lines 2 and 3 are scoring at a pretty decent rate here.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like you said, I think even like guys like Luosterainen, um, God, I should have more to name right now, but he's somebody that I think I've watched 2 or 3 Panthers games this year, and every time I've tuned in, he's been noticeable on the ice. But dudes like that, and you compare that to what we're saying with Edmonton, and it's like you got to have these other dudes step up that are not necessarily your number one or even your number two star on the team, but especially when your best players out of the lineup, you need those guys to be good.
Absolutely. And it's a great example of a team that has that and a team that absolutely does not have that. So
Yep.
that'll be interesting to see how it goes. Some more,
Skinner too, right? I mean, he's been kind of not so good, eh?
right. So, I mean, here we are once again with the Edmonton Oilers and the goaltending conundrum. But
Yeah.
let's move over to San Jose. They bagged their first win of the season. This year, it did not come at the expense of the Edmonton Oilers, so they did escape that ridicule this year. But they scored 4 unanswered goals to defeat Utah in overtime. So let me ask you this. Do the Sharks feel better about the win, or does the Utah Hockey Club feel worse about the loss?
Um, it's a tough loss for that Utah team for sure. I watched most of the second half of this game. Um, like when you see the Sharks celebrating that win, you can kind of tell what their mentality is for the entire season. Like they all start doing that kind of like jump around thing, and they're just like, yes, we know this is our first win. Yes, we know there might not be that many of these moments throughout the year. We're just gonna enjoy it. And like so it was a very kind of carefree win. I'm sure it's good to get that monkey off your back and get in the win column for the first time in the year. But to me, it's a little more hurtful than it is celebratory on the Utah side, just because, they've looked pretty good, but there's definitely still some holes there. I think they've played a lot of high scoring games. Um, Ingram hasn't totally found his mojo yet this year. So there's some things to work out in Utah. I think overall it's been a relatively positive start to the season, but there's definitely some kinks to figure out.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, if I'm Utah, video coaching opportunity 101 for me would be the goal to bring it within one and the goal to tie the game can't happen. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
if you're looking at, whether it's you're looking at it from a D zone perspective, a face-off
Mhm.
breakdown perspective,
Yes.
any like aspect of those plays just can't happen in the NHL if you want to win games. And I think having Sean Dursey out of the lineup is really hurting them. I,
Yeah,
I
that
don't think that's being stated enough. I know we
you're right.
know what that player means to that team and that franchise, and we know how long he's going to be out for. So hopefully they can weather the storm and keep their head above water there. But yeah, I would not feel great about blowing a 4 goal lead
Yeah.
to the borderline anemic offense that is the San Jose Sharks.
Yep. And they had honestly 2 of those goals. I forget if it was like the first and second or the second and third, but 2 of them were like identical. Like I'm looking at the
Yes.
replays and I'm like, did they just play the same replay? Like that is the same fucking goal. It's a face off, it's a lapse coverage off of a face off, and then it's a missed coverage in front of the net and a deflection. Like
Yeah.
it's just yeah, you can't make that mistake twice, let alone in the dying moments of a game and within like 2 minutes of each other. So
No, and that to me that just looked like, something I'd seen once or twice before. Just a little bit
yeah.
of a mental checkout on defense. So
Yeah. That being
yeah.
said, I mean, yes, the Sharks offense is probably going to be one of the weaker ones in the league come the end of the season, but so far they've had some bright spots. I think Toffoli's looked good. I think Granlund has been really solid. I think Zetterlund will have another good year. I know we talked about some of these guys with a guest on a recent episode, but yeah, they're not looking too shabby.
No, and I think there's a couple teams that are just slightly above them in the overall standings that are performing significantly worse with
Yeah.
putting the puck in the net, and we'll get to those in a little bit.
Hmm.
Someone who's not having trouble putting the puck in the net is John Tavares.
Yeah.
He bags a hat trick the other night. The Leafs hand their Jets the first loss of their campaign. So, this is just probably like counting as four losses for Jets fans because, of course, it had to come against the Leafs. But what a game that was! I watched
Yep.
that entire one start to finish. That was awesome.
Yep. Jets played really well despite losing. Just a really entertaining game. Couple guys, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later too, but Kyle Connor and Josh Morrissey, man, these guys were on fire that night and really all season. They've been great so far. I think in that game, I think Connor had 2 goals, maybe 2 assists, and I think Morrissey had a couple of assists as well. But obviously, as a D man, it's the stuff off the score sheet for him that really comes in clutch. A lot of block shots, a lot of just bodying guys off the puck, that type of stuff. Right place, right time. Yeah, I like that Jets team, but that was a good win for Toronto.
One thing I love about Josh Morrissey is his compete level has to be the highest of anyone, probably in the NHL. Obviously, these guys are all pro athletes. They're all at
It's
the
right
top
up
of their
there.
game. But
Yep.
I mean, the dude is just an absolute gamer. And I guess you could say he's a little bit on the smaller side for a defenseman. I mean,
Right.
I know that that's evolving in today's NHL, but for
Sure.
what, we think of with growing up 90s, 2000s hockey, probably on the smaller side. When he throws hits, he doesn't let anyone get through him. Like when
Hmm.
he hits you, he takes you out of the play.
Yep.
And, 99% of the time they're clean hits. So that's something you just love to see.
Yep. Plus, I mean, he's pretty good musician. The Smiths were awesome. I didn't like his solo stuff as much, but great band, the Smiths, eclectic stuff, lot of lot of timeless songs that'll live on forever. So props to you, Morrissey.
Couldn't agree more. The Bruins, Brad Marchand, there was some reports that he had maybe agreed to, or the team and him had come close to a 3-year extension. That came to us from Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman, and I think this might be the first time I've ever seen this happen. Marchand just straight up debunked it, and I don't think I've ever seen Elliot be wrong. Maybe once or twice, but not more than that. So, what do you think is going on with the Brad Marchand contract dilemma over in Boston?
I'm not too entirely sure, but a better question might be what is going on with Brad Marchand himself. I feel like that guy has looked like a shell of the player he can and should be so far this season. I think he's only got like 1 goal, maybe 3 or 4 assists or something, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I haven't watched a ton of Bruins hockey this year, so maybe he's playing fine and just not showing up on the score sheet. But that's your captain, and we all know the Bruins offense kind of runs through him and Pasternak right now. I know they got other depth guys, but if you don't have Marchand going, you're in trouble. If you're a Bruins fan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think one of the reasons we maybe thought this team was going to fall off was due to the fact that their depth wasn't where it used to be. I mean, maybe these last 2 to 3 years. And I think where that kind of got shoved up our hoop was the fact that Pasternak and Marchand did not fall off at all. In fact, they continued to increase their production and prove why those two are the absolute heartbeat of that team. I mean, especially Marchand. I know he's your captain, and not every captain is that player for that team, but he absolutely is for the Bruins.
Yeah, and listen, like by no means am I a Bruins fan, but in
No.
fantasy hockey, I thought Marchand was criminally low ranked. Like nobody was touching with like a 10-foot pole. And it was like, well into, I don't remember what round, but I kept remembering
It's
like,
Brad Marchand. Why not?
Well, I kept thinking like, fuck, if I kind of want him on my team, like he was really good last year, like I'm gonna take him, and then I would grab someone else and be like, oh, he'll for sure be gone by next time I'm up. And then he just kept not being, and finally I was like, fuck it, I'm taking him. I can't believe no one's taking him. And now I'm like, fuck, like this guy's got to prove me right. Like, so I've been a little personally annoyed by uh by that, but I have no doubt. I think he'll figure it out. I think I'd be pretty surprised to see him fall off in a big way this year. I don't think that's going to happen. But time's a ticking. Let's go,
Yeah,
Brad.
absolutely. And I think that supporting cast, they're just such a weird mix of, seasoned veterans and young guys. It's similar to, I guess you could say the Caps, maybe a little bit more similar to Pittsburgh and their situation. But I think one of the bright spots for them has been Jonas Korpisalo. He's looked really good in the games that I've seen him play for the Bruins. So I don't, obviously there was some controversy over them letting Allmark go in the fashion that they did, but I think that what they have in Korpisalo is absolutely good enough from a goaltending perspective to get them to where they were last year. Let's go ahead and move on to talk about our favorite team from the Eastern Conference. He said sarcastically, the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it's not been a good start to the year for the Penguins.
Oh, oh no.
Love it. But this latest news is a big one. So Penguins forward Brian Rust is listed as week to week with a lower body injury. And this might just be me as a hockey fan having to deal with this and then having to try and formulate opinions from these injury reports. Week to week, I mean, I'd rather you just tell me he's out for 2 months, right?
Yeah, I hate
Like
that.
week to week is so vague. I mean, month to month to me is better because it's like then okay, I'm at least pushing this guy 2 to 3 months down the road. But like week to week, that could be 2 weeks, that could be 8 weeks. You just never know.
Yeah, but tell me why. I mean, death taxes and the Penguins having a major player hurt and then calling up some random guy named like Brent SodaStream
Yes,
and he comes up and just scores like 5 goals in his first like 8 games or some shit like that. I'm sure they'll have some random dude with a weird name that I've never heard
some
of.
kid.
Yeah. But either way, they're definitely in trouble. I think they've played the second most games in the league, and they are 3-7-1. They have like the second worst goal differential in the league. Only the Sharks are worse. Um, so yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
They're also just second to last in the league in standings. They are the 31st ranked team in the NHL right now. So I know I asked you this about the Oilers, but what's if God forbid you were a Penguins fan, what would the panic index be set at right now?
Well, here's the difference between the Penguins and the Oilers, and this is just my thinking. I think maybe some will disagree, but coming into this season, the Oilers expected to be really good. Okay, they expected to have the caliber season that would bring them right back to the Cup final again next year, at least on another deep playoff run, and give them a shot at going for it again. And so that panic meter is really high because they're underperforming and it's kind of a shock. And now you're losing your best player, and you're like, fuck, what the hell is going on? The Penguins thing, like, I don't know why so many preseason rankings had these guys like up there. So many like analysts really seem to think this was going to be a wild card team or even like snag a third place in the Metro kind of thing. And I can't for the life of me figure out why. This is a bad hockey team.
Well, I
This is
can
a
tell you why, and I can tell you what number he
yeah.
wears too, but
Yeah, right.
yeah.
But like, listen to me. This is a bad hockey team. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Caps fan and I hate the Penguins. This is not a good hockey team. They're not a playoff team. They shouldn't be expecting to make the playoffs. And so, are they doing poorly right now? Yes. Are they underperforming? Probably. But by a lot? No. I don't think like it's going to get that much better. So, if you're a Penguins fan, buckle up.
Yeah, this does not look good. I know that our Penguins insider on the show has made it well known how much Brian Russ means to that Penguins team. And, you know, let's just forget forwards for a second. You've got what Letang and Carlson are making what close to $20 million on your blue line, and they can't stop anything right now. I mean, literally just everything is going right through those two. So that's bad. We haven't even gotten to goaltending yet. Like Tristan Jarry
Oh,
is on a
man.
conditioning stint in the AHL, And your
Yeah.
goaltending tandem is someone named Blomqvist and Nedeljkovic.
Yeah, that's that's good.
Yeah, it's not gonna go very well, I would hope. Now, of course, like you said, this is where they call up, Joe Schmo, who,
Yep.
bags like
Brent Soda Stream.
right, 12 goals in 15 games or something like that. And then Russ comes back fine. Crosby goes on a heater. Malkin actually tries playing hockey and they do get into the wild card spot. But I don't see it this year. I agree with you. That is not a good hockey team. And that is me taking every ounce of bias out of them.
I agree. I truly just do not think that this is a playoff team. I didn't before the year starts. I still don't. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
If I'll put it this way, if they make the playoffs with this team, that's more impressive to me than what the Caps did last year.
I couldn't agree more.
Moving on, Matt Martin is back with the Islanders on a 1 year deal. I know we had him as a trivia question the other day. I think I guessed him for the not wearing visors one. And
Yeah, you were a week too early, I
I
guess.
know we spoke it into existence
He's
though.
back,
So,
Jack.
so the
The
Washington
Islanders,
Capitals are going to win the Stanley
he's a
Cup.
fan favorite. I think that's a good move for the Isles, and especially with Duclair injured, they're in need of another extra forward now. So, yeah, I like that move. Fan favorite. He knows the team well, right?
Knows his role.
Um,
That hasn't
yeah,
changed.
nope, exactly. And I'm sure he was just fucking sitting around in the gym or playing PlayStation or whatever the fuck, waiting on the call, and then he's like, "Yep, on my
Yep.
way."
So you come crawling back.
No, exactly.
Uh,
Just a little extra off season for the old vet. I'm sure that's not a bad
exactly.
thing.
They just gave him an extra couple weeks. Nothing wrong with that. Speaking of a team that could use an extra couple weeks, I know we just ripped on the Oilers. We just ripped on the Bruins. So hot start for us. We got to talk about the Colorado Avalanche because I don't think that people fully grasp how big of a pile of shit this team is in. So just for those that don't know, six of their top nine forwards are injured. That's two lines of their forward core. It's just unable to play right now. It has gotten so bad that they're actually having to start defensemen at forward on the fourth line. So Oliver Shillington, known defenseman, is going to play right wing at some point. I think they
Wow,
play
I didn't
tonight.
even know that. That's crazy.
So this is wild. I mean, if you look at their daily face-off, it is not pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of names I'm seeing for the first time. A lot of people who I don't know how many NHL games they've played.
Connor
They're
Crampington Sinton.
literally that. So like just for a reference, center depth, McKinnon, Middlestat, Parker Kelly, and Matthew Steinberg.
Steinberg. Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, not exactly the team I would
Oh man.
want to have, going into the postseason. So obviously we know Landeskog is hurt. If you
Yeah.
haven't watched the Face Off show in his episode, please go do it. The dude is amazing. He has complete nails, but you know, we just don't know what's going to happen with him.
So here's what I'll say about the Avs. If you've been listening to this podcast a while, you know that year after year, I love to talk about how the Oilers have two good hockey players and then no goaltending and like one kind of good defenseman. And somehow they're able to ride that to the postseason every year, but then, they can't run it much further than that. Until last year, they almost proved me wrong, but still didn't. Um, the Avalanche, this is kind of looking like a similar situation these days, right? Like they've got two of the best players in the world on their team, and Nathan McKinnon and Makar. And I just don't know that that's going to be enough, especially when you look at what's going on in goal right now. Georgiev has not been able to figure it out. What's his name? Eustace Ananen has not been able to figure it out.
And then they
And
have Kakinen
so,
too,
yeah,
right?
they just claimed Kakinen off of waivers because they're like, fuck, like, let's see if this guy can take over the reins. Like they're just looking for somebody to step up in the crease and earn some of these starts because they're going from goalie to goalie. They're going from their starter to backup, saying, okay, well, that wasn't very good. How about you? Oh shit, okay, that was worse. All right, you get back in there. And it's like it's just nothing's working. So goaltending's bad. They've got all these injuries. They've got like two or three forwards that are Middlestat has actually been really good for them so far this year. I'll give them that. Obviously, they got McKinnon, they've got Rantanen, but even he is on like a little bit of a drought now. Um, what else? They've got, I think, what Lehkonen is still not back with the team yet. Val, I heard, is maybe getting closer. Nikushkin, but still not back. Um, yeah, you just go down the list. There's a ton of holes, and the longer this goes, the worse it gets. They're going to be in some deep, deep shit if they don't get this figured out soon.
I think I know I've been saying this the last couple episodes that if this team doesn't figure it out when it comes to goaltending, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. I think they're in deep shit now. It's just not readily apparent because we haven't played that many games. But I mean, the fact that Onanen and Georgiev have basically played the same amount of games, they've played arguably the same amount of minutes. I think Georgiev's played like 8 more minutes, and he's basically got like two more goals allowed in that time span than Onanen does. I mean, it's bad. I mean, Onanen's GAA through those games is a 248. Georgiev is a 462.
Sheesh, that is rough. Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand picking up Kakinen and just
Right.
you're throwing darts at the board at this point, but you might as well keep throwing them.
And I know that this was like a little ways away, but it really makes me think, why did you ever get rid of Darcy Kemper? And before that, why did you ever get rid of Philip Grubauer?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the goalie market, that's a whole nother discussion that we could go down, but goalies, it's very much become this thing where it's like, okay, thanks for the cup you just won me. Now take a hike. Like literally Holtby, Matt Murray,
Yep.
Marc-Andre Fleury before that, the guys you just mentioned. Like, look how many goalies win a cup for a team and then are immediately gone or play like one more year with that team and then are gone. And yeah, it's fascinating. Goalies seem to be really, or at least teams seem to think goalies are really recyclable and that they can just kind of pull in the next young guy. But the other thing is goalies are so streaky that it's like
Yes.
last year, you're looking at Georgiev and you're like, okay, we've got a bona fide starter here and for not too much money. And then fuck, you start this year and you're like, shit, looks like this guy's just gonna have a really bad year. And what the fuck do we do about it? We've got Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog as his backup, and now we're gonna pick up Capo Kakinen. Like
Right.
that doesn't inspire a ton of confidence either. So
It's not really something you can fix mid-season, except for two ways. One, the goalie just finds their game somehow, and you just pray that that
yeah,
lasts throughout your
right.
run. Two, like, are you gonna like trade for someone? Not this
Right.
early.
No, not this
Absolutely not.
early. I
You
guess the
know,
other thing is like what Pittsburgh's doing, like basically the unplug and plug back in of sending him down to the
right,
minors for a couple of games and being like, okay, welcome back. Did that do
right,
anything? No? Okay.
right. Try this
Shit. I
again.
don't have any other ideas.
Right. You kind of just, I mean, it's sort of the same situation that the Penguins are in. You kind of just gotta throw what you have at it and hope for the best. So,
Yeah.
I hope the Abs figure it out before the Penguins do. But
Hmm.
I'm looking at this team. I'm looking at the rest of, their division. I'm going, this, someone has to fall off here, just like the
Yep.
Bruins. It just doesn't
Absolutely.
it doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and move in to talk about some gambling and some fantasy hockey. But before we do, we just have a quick word for you guys from our friends over at Prop Tracker. You guys know Prop Tracker is your home for player prop research and finding outlier bets for the NHL, NBA, NFL, and more. Once you find a bet you like, start tracking it and get notified on its progress, like shots, rebounds, or catches. Go to Prop Tracker app.com/emptybetters to try a free month of our Android or iOS app. Again, that is proptrackerapp.com/emptybetters. All right, gambling. Let's get into some gambling stuff. I know this is usually Harry's jurisdiction, but I actually picked up on a couple things this week that I thought were pretty interesting. So, home underdogs, a label that has the lowest win total so far this season. This is of the four label combos you can get, home, road, favorite, or underdog, combine those, you get four. It's just 13.1% in terms of hitting, which I was a little bit surprised by just from the boost you get at home. I know the Caps have been great value for home dogs a couple times. I think they were decent home dogs last night against the Rangers, and we all saw how that turned out. But I was just a little bit surprised. I feel like normally that number is up around like the 20-ish era to start the season. So really interesting numbers there. Another one I've been looking at a lot is Tom Wilson, over 2.5 shots on goal. That's usually decent value. That's usually plus money. This is a great one too, because with the addition of PLD, his role has completely opened up. I mean, you saw it at the start of the year with this guy scoring what, 5 goals in 5 games. He's
Yep.
shooting the puck. I mean, this is
Yeah.
something he can get in a period.
Yeah, and throw in Connor McMichael to that list as well. Dude had 10 shots on goal last night against the Rangers just by himself. I don't think, I mean, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I would wager all the games he played last year, I bet he never had more than like five at
I would agree.
maximum, maybe even less than that. So that's another guy whose role has just completely changed this year. And I think he's going to get a ton more looks, especially with guys shadowing Ovi, paying more attention to Wilson. McMichael's still going to fly under the radar. He's quick, he's slippery, and he's going to get open, get opportunities a lot.
He's also going to get PP2 time. And I think,
Yep.
as we've seen, Carberry is a little bit quicker about going to PP2
Yeah.
than in past years where you just want to leave 74 and 8 at the point out there
Yeah.
for 4.5 minutes. But
Right.
let's go ahead and move into fantasy. We've got some studs and duds to start the year. I know you've got a lot to say about both your studs and your duds, so I'm going to throw it to you first. Who is your stud to start the season?
So, yeah, I talked about it earlier a little bit, but let's dive a little deeper. Kyle Connor on the Winnipeg Jets, 9 games, 8 goals, 6 assists. In our fantasy league, he is averaging 3.5 fantasy points per night. That is excellent stuff for a forward. To put it in perspective for you, he has almost the identical stats so far as Nikita Kucherov, who,
Jesus.
everybody's been talking about how good Kuch is, how good of a start Kuch has been off to this year. And Connor, a little bit flying under the radar, but literally has like the same numbers. So um, just an excellent pick. I'm super happy that I got him. Didn't have to pick him all that high either. So that's has turned into a real nice value pick for me. And I know you're not going to find this guy in waivers in your league, but could be somebody to look to make a trade for. I think he's going to stay hot and have a real good year.
That's definitely someone that I would trade for if I could, but I can't imagine you're going to be giving that guy up anytime soon. My stud is going to be Sam Bennett. Through 11 games, he's got 8 goals, 4 assists, and he's averaging 3 fantasy points a night. I feel like every time I flip my phone over, it just says goal by Sam Bennett, assist by Sam Bennett. I've used this guy for our hat trick parlay a couple times. That usually hits. I don't know why. Somehow it does, but just thought he's had a really good start to the year. We talked about Barkov being out for a little while. I think he saw some uptick in minutes from that, and hopefully they keep that going.
All right. Let's flip it to you. Go first for your dud.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a bone to pick with this guy, and it's not doing him any favors that he plays for the New York Rangers here. But Mika Zibanejad drafted this guy pretty high in our fantasy draft. I think it was with the 36th pick, if I remember. So what's that? Within the first second round, I think, right? Yeah, something
I
like
think
that.
so, yeah.
Math. Um, through 9 games, he has 2 goals, 5 assists, and he's averaging 1.5 fantasy points per night. To put that into perspective, that's usually around where Nick Dowd is. So when you draft a player that high, obviously you're looking for goal scoring and setup production. I don't know why it's just been a little bit of a slow start for him. There's a couple plays he made last night against the Caps where I was like, this guy just looks off. Maybe it was a weird off season for him. Like obviously we don't know, but similar to like I guess an inverse to what you were saying about Kyle Connor, you got him late. I took this guy early because I was banking on the fact that he was going to be putting up at least 2 points a game.
Yeah, I wouldn't have blamed you for that either, but that so far that's rough. He definitely needs to pick it up. My dud, I also have a bone to pick with somebody. Huh, Ryan Nugent Hopkins. What in the fuck is going on, buddy? Like this guy has played 10 games. He has 1 goal, 3 assists. He's averaging 1 fantasy point per night. The dude plays 20 minutes a night, sometimes more than that, sometimes a little less, but it's always in that 18 to 22 minutes a night range. It's not like he's not getting the opportunities. I'm sure he's getting power play time. But again, we talked about it earlier with McDavid out. This is a guy who needs to fucking step up, needs to have a really strong next couple of weeks here and be a leader in that locker room. He's been there long enough. He's talented enough. He's got to get going.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better myself. That's their guy. It's like if they're not looking at 97, I guess you could look at 29 next, but
Obviously, Draisaitl, yeah, but
like that guy's been the heartbeat of that team for a long time. And you
mhm,
saw how much of a boost he was in the postseason last year.
yes, yeah, no, he's got to figure it out.
Let's go ahead and move into our discussions for the episode. But before we do, I think you have a word from our friends over at DraftKings.
Sure do. The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck has dropped on the 24-25 season, so get in on all the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
All right, so this is a heavy jersey podcast. You guys know that. So we got to start off with a little sweater talk here. The NHLPA tweeted and leaked the Four Nations uniforms. So we got them for Canada, USA, Sweden, and Finland. That tournament is going to be in lieu of an all-star game this year. So looking forward to that. Initial thoughts.
Um, I like, I don't hate any of them. I think they're all pretty good. I actually would argue USA is the worst of the bunch. Um, I think the Finland one is pretty clean. I hate to say it, but Canada might have the best one. I think that one is just really sharp. But I like the Sweden one a lot too. Again, I don't hate any of them, but if I had to like rank them, I'd probably go Canada, Finland, Sweden, US.
I like that. I think Finland, they usually just bring heat.
Yeah.
It's usually a variation on the one they had this time, but some of the
Yep.
ones they've had for World Juniors and
Yeah.
World
Really
Championships and
clean.
Olympics, they've looked really clean. Sweden, I mean, it's perfect. Don't ever change it.
Yeah.
They're just, it's their trade Kroner design. I love that.
Yep.
Canada, it does look a little cheesy. I do have to give a shout out to our friend over at Hockey Collective, Nick Bowens. He was like, "Why did you have to put the words Canada on the leaf as if
Yeah.
we didn't know
That's fair, I
what
guess.
team that was?" So, uh, all right, USA. I want to talk about this.
Okay, let's do it.
So, my thoughts on what the American hockey uniform should be.
Yeah.
Home and away, never change it.
Yep.
If you are going to change it and go to this navy blue look, why would you get rid of the USA Hockey logo?
Yeah.
I really like that logo. I mean, maybe that's just me being like a early 2000s, late 90s kid, but the USA in just three block letters that looks like it was done in Microsoft
Yeah,
Word, really not
exactly.
doing much for me. The jersey is fine. I'm
Yeah,
glad that there's
I
not
agree.
like I like the bottom striping. I like the striping on the arms. I think that's great, but
Yep.
come on. Like try.
No, I completely agree. And I think like they've kind of just like not been able to find their identity almost like with a lot of the jerseys they've made in recent years. And I just want them to kind of commit to something,
Yeah.
Like I totally, yeah, I just think there's no identity to it. It's just it's kind of uninspired. And yeah, when you compare them to the other three, it's far and away the worst of the four, in my opinion.
Hopefully that means they'll play the best, but who
Yeah,
knows?
right.
Let's go ahead and go back to the Boston Bruins for just a second. So we talked about how the Penguins were struggling in the standings. These guys are dead last in the Atlantic. They are 4-5-1 through 10 games. They have the lowest goals for in the Atlantic with 27 and the worst goal differential at a -7. They have a 500 home record, but only one win on the road. So I don't know what you get when you read that. To me, that just says there's problems everywhere.
Yeah, it's been messy so far for the Bruins. And listen, I mean, every year it seems like we're always talking about how hot the Metro division is and how competitive it is. That Atlantic division is shaping up to be the most competitive division in the league this year. And so the Bruins really can't afford to be kind of putzing around and trying to figure shit out for too much longer.
And Montreal's ahead of them in the standings now. So if that doesn't wake them up, I don't know what will. Did you have a chance to jump on any of the hot merch coming out of that Lululemon and Fanatics collab?
I poked around. They don't have every team yet. I did look at just some. I clicked on the Red Wings stuff because obviously, in my opinion, best logo in sports, and just wanted to see what their merch looked like. I think it's pretty clean. It's obviously real new looking, real fresh, but I would definitely wear some of it. It's just it's pricey.
Yeah.
It's I guess quote unquote designer. So.
Yeah. So I mean, but like hoodies, we're talking like we're 119 before
Yeah,
tax and shipping, and
like a t-shirt or a golf polo was like $90
that's
before shipping.
beyond crap. Like there's no
Yeah.
way any t-shirt
Yeah.
that's not signed by someone famous is worth
No,
$90.
I'm like, I mean, I already know I'm gonna like have pit stains on this fucking thing in like a couple of weeks. Like I'm not paying that for any t-shirt.
Just
They
like
just
the
I
day you get it, you like make ribs or something and just
yeah.
drop barbecue sauce all over it or
I
something
had a
like that.
barbecue stain on my white
There you
t-shirt.
go. On my
Yeah.
Lululemon Fanatics collab t-shirt.
Yeah. My wallet, don't forget something like that. That's the remix. Thank you. Tim
Amen.
McGraw, right? I think.
Yep. That was Tim
Nice.
McGraw.
Hell yeah.
Great throwback. Stammers returned to Tampa. This was an awesome game. I know you watched this whole thing. I caught the tail end of it. Just initial reactions from the tribute they did and how that was received.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Cooper said it really well. His quote, he said, "How do you fit 16 years into a 2-minute video? It almost doesn't feel right. It was extremely well done, but in the end, it doesn't matter how well you do it. You'll never do it justice." And I think to me, there's a little bit more behind that, like behind what Coop is saying. He's almost, and maybe I'm overthinking it or overreading it, but when I heard him say that, I almost felt like he wasn't totally talking about just the video, about doing it justice. I
Correct.
felt like he was talking about doing the entire situation justice. And he was like, there's just never going to be a way to right the ship of what happened here.
You can't
Whether
make up for it with a video.
and I don't think he's blaming anyone or saying it is or isn't his fault or whatever, but I just think he knows the situation and he's just like, there's not, you're never going to mend this relationship properly. I'm sure Stamkos, if you ask him, he'll give the hockey answer and say, "Oh, it's upsetting it didn't work out, but I've got no bad blood," or whatever, that kind of thing. But man, you're emotional about that kind of thing. And he wanted to score a goal and wanted to have a good game. And you come in with a chip on your shoulder in those situations. So well done video, but well done on what Coop said. And it was a great game. That was one of the best games I've watched this year.
Yeah, and he bagged a couple assists too, I think,
He did.
right?
He had two really nice assists. They were down 2-0. The Predators played a horrible first period. And actually they went down 3-0. Goal got called back for offsides, a really controversial one. But it did get overturned. And yeah, then Stammer kind of put the team on his back and had two real nice assists to get them back in it. So it was a great game. Tampa ultimately won in OT, but excellent game, and I'm excited. It's a shame that they only play each other twice a year, but I guess
Yeah.
we'll get one more. Won't be in Tampa, but still always interesting to see guys play their longtime former teammates and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So I want to get your thoughts on this. So there was a couple pictures going around that got a little bit of attention. When I say a little, I mean a lot. There was a guy who had like taped over the back of his Stamkos jersey, like a bar through the name, and then put an X over the 91 on the back. And then there was another picture of him next to a guy that held up a sign that said like, what was it? Like, you're not welcome here, 91 or something like that.
Yeah, you're not welcome in Tampa anymore or something like
So
that.
just your initial thoughts on that.
It's just tone deaf. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense. You basically are admitting you have no idea what happened with that situation. You're basically admitting that you're a total casual, and that you actually haven't read even like one article about what went down with that situation, or listened to any good hockey and gambling podcast called Empty Betters that vehemently went over it as it was happening in real time. But yeah, it's just stupid. Like, how dumb can you be? I get like go back to the Tavares thing. I get why Long Island acted that way.
Right.
I think John Tavares had every opportunity to come back to the Islanders and fully decided that that was not what he wanted to do. I don't think that's how it went down in Tampa with Stamkos, and I think that's pretty well known. And so I think that's just pretty fucking stupid. But hey, it's Florida hockey fans, so not that shocked that they don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that this is probably idiot move of the year in the NHL, and we're only 2 weeks in. I think what I'm almost more pissed off about is like if you're gonna draw a sign and you're over the age of like 10,
Yeah.
it needs to look like someone over the age of 10 drew it. Because like
That's another good point. Yeah.
if you're using like 8 different colored markers, like
Yeah,
this
might as
one,
well have been in crayon.
this is like I thought a kid did this.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna spell out you're not welcome and then put the letter you quit on us, grammatically that just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really dumb. Yeah,
Yeah.
you quit on us. The fuck are you talking about? This guy brought you 2 Stanley Cups, almost got you a third one.
And then GM wouldn't sign him to the contract.
Yeah, and then GM said take a hike. Like that. I mean, and listen, I want to go back for a sec because I know there are some diehard Tampa fans out there, including some that listen to this podcast, and we
They
love
do.
you. And yes, not all Tampa fans are like this, but it sucks seeing fan bases that just don't, aren't in touch with what's going on and then want to make some kind of bold statement like this. And it gives everybody else a bad rap unnecessarily. So
I also
that's all I'm
think
saying.
like I appreciate that people make signs for professional sporting events.
Yeah.
I think there's like a line. I think it's getting way blown out of proportion. You see it all the times in warmups now. It's just
Yeah.
can I have, give me
Yeah.
blank, it's my, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what's the point of making the sign other than you getting your face in that picture and then that picture
Yeah.
gets sent around? So it's like you're clearly doing this for attention.
Right. Right.
If you need attention, just tell someone you need attention. That's a little bit easier.
Yeah, there you go. So this is another same topic, but different situation. There was another younger fan, maybe like, little kid. He looked maybe around 12 years old or something like that. And he was fully decked out in Nashville Predators Stamkos jersey. He had the baseball cap, everything. And he had a sign that said it said like, "Hey Stammer, the day you got traded was the day I became a Preds fan," or something like that. And I'm guessing he lives in Tampa. He was probably a Bolts fan, but
Right.
mainly a Stamkos fan. And then, sees his favorite players getting traded, and he's like, "Well, I'm going with him. I'm hopping on that bandwagon because I want to keep watching my favorite player." What's the consensus on this? Because I think this is a really interesting question, especially if you're a young kid. It's one thing
Right.
if you're an adult and you've been a fan of a franchise for 20 plus years or something like that. But I genuinely don't know what would have happened if I was like 12 or like 13 or something and Ovi got traded. Like, I don't know what. I mean, like, I guess I'd still be a Caps fan, but I probably would also still be cheering for Ovi. Like, that's the player that helped you fall in love with the game and
Yeah.
helped, it's that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's just interesting. What are your thoughts?
So I think it sort of goes back to what I was saying about like making the signs in the first place. I think there's an age cutoff there. I don't know exactly what that number is, but I agree with you. It's like, when we were, early middle school, maybe late elementary school, if Ovi had been traded or moved or whatever, probably, you know, I agree with you. I'm probably still going to Caps games and being a huge Caps fan, but I'm also probably buying whatever sweater Ovi's wearing. I get it. If it's your favorite player and you're really young and impressionable, that makes sense. I think it almost makes more sense now because at least you can watch their games. Like, I mean, how many of our friends that, let's say, aren't hockey fans of a team in their area do you know that are like, I'm a huge Avs fan because Joe Sakic was my favorite player growing up, or I was a huge Ducks fan because of
True.
Timu, or,
Yeah.
Jerome
Yeah.
McGinley. Like, we all know that Harry's got a soft spot for the Flames because his favorite player growing up was Jerome McGinley. So,
Yeah. Right.
um, I think that's a situation where I don't want to say I greenlight it, but I get it.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. I think you got the right idea. I just thought it was an interesting discussion topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, essentially, that's where my football fandom came from. I was a huge Colts fan because of Peyton Manning. And I mean, when he
Yep.
went over to the Broncos, I didn't necessarily buy Broncos gear, but I damn sure I would watched every single one of their games because I
Yeah.
wanted to see him. Well, sorry, I wanted to see the Broncos defense win him a second Super Bowl. But let's go ahead and hop into our State of the Union for the Washington Capitals. But before we do, I think you have a new word from our new friends over at Raycon.
I do. Let's find out together what that word is.
Yeah.
That word is that the most exciting thing about Black Friday and Cyber Monday is getting an amazing deal that you wouldn't normally get, except with Raycon, because with Raycon, you get an amazing deal on premium audio every day of the year. But that doesn't mean they're not having any sales for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. Far from it. They're actually doubling down on their amazing value by offering my viewers up to 30% site wide. Looking for a Black Friday or Cyber Monday deal you'll appreciate every day? Try Raycon's Everyday Earbuds. Their latest model includes plenty of new features that make them even more of a must-have for any audio lover. For example, they now feature a 32-hour battery life and multi-point connectivity that lets you pair with two devices at once. Raycons start at just half the price as the other guys. So it's already an amazing deal, even before you factor in their offer of up to 30% off site wide. It's time to save for big. It's time to save big for Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today to get up to 30% off site wide. That's right. You'll get up to 30% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/THPN.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Thank you to Raycon for coming on for the month of November. Be sure to go
Yes.
check them out. Use that code. They are great earbuds if you like to listen to things. For example, this
Hell yeah.
podcast. Let's go ahead and dive into the recent games for our beloved Washington Capitals. So let's go back a week to the Frozen Frenzy. I know we were recording during this game, but they bag a 4-1 win over the Islanders. They follow that up the following night on their back-to-back by dummying them 6-3. A game we probably want to forget about. Last Thursday, they get spanked by Tampa 3-0, and then they rebound with a 5-3 win over the Rangers last night on Tuesday. So just initial thoughts from those games. Was there any one that stood out to you in a good way or a bad way at all?
God, those Flyers games were so entertaining to watch. I also was in a hotel by myself and I had nothing to do, so that might have played into that a little bit, but I had a great time sitting there and watching them. And geez, that Rangers game last night, that's entertaining hockey to watch. I think
Yeah.
Carberry said it best. He said that is great for our game, that game of hockey. He might not have loved it from a defensive perspective. There was a lot of goals being scored, a lot of goals being scored one after another, and that kind of thing that you'll want to tighten up if you're the head coach of a team. But I agree with him. It was great in terms of getting people excited about watching hockey. So yeah, I actually didn't watch that Lightning game that we lost, and I'm kind of happy I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't miss much. That was, it happens. Those games are going to happen in the NHL.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's an 82 game season. You learn from it, you move on. I think that's a huge reason to me why the big one from this list is the Rangers win. I mean, I echo everything you said about the Flyers game. Those were awesome. The fact that they did that to that team on back-to-back nights after doing what they did to that team on the final game of the regular season last year. I mean, does it
Yeah.
get any better?
Well, and
Like,
it's so hard to beat any team in the league 2 games in a row, let alone 2 nights in a row at your own home and at their home. It's just a really hard thing to do. And they did a great job, and they didn't need overtime for either one. So
right.
that was pretty sick.
That's a massive win. And, those were great. I think when you look at the caliber of a hockey team that the New York Rangers are, the broadcast was all over it from the drop of the puck last night. They were like, they do not look like themselves. It's like, well, they don't. I'll tell you who usually doesn't look like this. It's the Washington Capitals, too, because we have completely flipped the script on where we were in the postseason last year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to go on an absolute run and go deep in the postseason because we all know that if I do say that, it won't happen. But I think you nailed it. What Carberry said, what that does for their game, coming back home after that tough roadie in Tampa to be able to reset, refocus, and get into a game like this was awesome. And I know we said fight of the year for Delorier and Big Mac, but we might have to one up that because his roster of guys that he's punched directly in the face is starting to go up in
At this
numbers
point,
here.
I'm about to get me a Rad Caps jersey. I fucking love this guy, not just because we share the same nickname, Big Mac, but I love how he plays. I love his compete level. I love what he does for that locker room. I mean, you heard him reading out that lineup before the Flyers game too. The boys love him. So awesome having him on the team.
Yeah, it was awesome to see his reaction after the fight with Rempe. I mean, he split Rempe's cheek wide open and then he's just like screaming at the crowd. He's just like, dude is just an animal. And you got to love every single second of that, especially because we haven't really seen that in the NHL the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep, and shout out to the TNT crew. We always talk about how good of a job they do, but last week after that Flyers game, they did a really good interview with McElrad. If you haven't seen it, you can just go on TNT's Twitter or their Instagram. You'll find the video clip there. But really nice video that kind of tells you his whole story of how he got here, what he had to go through to get here. And it's a pretty amazing story. So
It really is. Guy's been grinding for a while, so I'm glad to see that he's getting, a regular roster spot here with the Caps. Let's go ahead and look at some of the roster moves. So they've recently recalled Michael Scarbosa from Hershey. Matt Roy got placed on IR. Carberry did say that the Scarbosa call up was to give the Caps another option at center. He wanted to move McMichael to second line wing, and I think he also wanted to give Lappy just like a little bit of a mental reset.
yeah, he needed it.
It was good. It was the right time to do it too. I mean,
Yeah.
you probably don't want to be doing that in April unless it's absolutely needed. Now is a good
Yeah.
time to do it. Just say like, hey, these are the things we liked from your game. This is what I want you to work on. Go sit up
Yeah.
top, watch it happen. And I'm sure he'll be back in next game. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
The big concern from the Rangers game though is the Caps played that game with essentially 5 defensemen past midway of the first period. Jacob Chikrin only took a couple shifts, then goes off down the tunnel, did not return. And currently, the latest info we have is that he's listed as day to day with an upper body injury. So, just
Yeah.
that sort of brought back so many awful feelings from last year for me. So,
Yeah.
I hope this is minor. I hope this is small. I think you need Roy and Chikrin in this lineup if this team wants to compete in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely not encouraging. Can't really speculate too much. Just got to hope for the best that it's something minor, something that's actually just going to be day to day, like they say. And guess we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, trivia time, man. What do you got for me this time? You're gonna
All right.
stump me. You're gonna come up with something crazy difficult here because Harry's not here. You're gonna be
This
like,
is an interesting one. This is a Halloween themed NHL question.
okay,
So I want to know if you know what happened on this date, on not today's date, but
okay,
on October 29th, of 2012, what NHL player was arrested for being legally, yes, the legal term they used was super drunk while while driving in a Halloween costume? And what was the Halloween costume? And then I'll give you bonus points if you can also tell me which teammate's ID he was attempting to use, because he was 19 and the teammate was 23.
So I think I know the player.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure it's Riley Sheehan.
Correct.
Yeah. And if I
Do you know
remember
what the Halloween costume was?
if I remember the story correctly, it was the purple Teletubby Halloween costume, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. I have no idea whose ID he was using though.
Okay.
And this is
So
when he was with the Wings, right?
yeah, he was like a Wings prospect. I actually think he had only played like one game with the Wings at this point or something like that. Um, he was attempting to use Brendan Smith's ID to get into the to get into the bars that night as a 19-year-old, and I guess Smitty's ID said he was 23 or something like that. But I was actually blown away by the fact that the legal term, because they I forget if it was, 3 times the legal limit or whatever the BAC came out to.
Right.
They have like a meter for like intoxicated, very intoxicated, whatever, like, and the reading matches to the category of super drunk. That is like the actual term
It's
that
like the
was
thing
written
from
on the police report.
it's like the thing from Spaceballs. It's like super drunk, ludicrous drunk. Like
Yeah, so purple Teletubby driving in the costume gets pulled over, got Smitty's ID.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall for that coach's meeting the next day.
Or just in the car, and the cops are like,
That too.
What are you? What is going on?"
That's got to be like the most confused. I'm sure it's Halloween and those cops
Yeah,
see everything, but like
sure.
walking up to a car where like a young dude is dressed as a Teletubby, and then like halfway through it, he's like, "Do you guys play for the Red Wings?" Like, oh, what a time.
Good
Anyways,
stuff.
stay safe, be safe, don't drink and drive in a Teletubbies costume, and use your buddy's ID to get into the bars. Mac, you got anything else before we get out of here?
That's all I got. Happy Halloween.
That's right, everybody. Class dismissed.